but nobody asked me, because I just teach English, and I guess who cares. But, yeah, the plan is to go back to phase 2 after Thanksgiving, although, just based on like logic, that seems like a terrible idea.
Oh, it is, you're right.
Yeah, so who knows if we actually will. Or if they'll move us back for a day and be like psych, which was really not helpful. Yeah, it was terrible. I feel like bitter for like a week because of like the back and forth. And I don't know, but I just feel like it's more confusing for you guys to go back and forth. It would be better just to pick one and do that well than to kind of ping pong back and forth.
I kind of like phase 2 because it's like a good amount of days, but not too much, not like a day with every class.
Yeah, I liked it. But, I mean, they do want to keep people safe-ish. Actually, I think they're just afraid of parents complaining. But maybe I shouldn't say that. Anyway, so we will do our best. So, because of that, we've got a lot to kind of go over today. We're going to start by talking about nouns. So, in your writer's notebook, open that up. You should have taken that parts of speech pre-assessment. I think most of you did. And by most, I mean like 2/3, which is still terrible, but of the people who took it, most people understood what a noun and pronoun was, so I'm just going to briefly review those, and we'll spend more time on some of the ones that we missed a little more often, okay? So open up your writer's notebook. You're just going to title nouns and pronouns, okay? Okay, so there are lots of parts of speech. I think that nouns are probably like the most basic, although they're all pretty basic parts of speech, but very important 2 sentences. So, who knows what a noun is? I say, what's a noun? Yeah, go for it.
Anything is classified as like a person, place, or thing.
Yes, perfect. Person, place, or things. Now, some of you have probably heard it said person, place, thing, or idea, and that's because you're kind of breaking up thing into 2 components. So write it down, person, place, or thing, and the thing can be kind of 2 things. You can have things that are concrete. And what does concrete mean? Yes, and then in this case, yeah.
Physically can touch it.
Yeah, you can interact with it in some way, so it's like a thing that you can interact with, okay? There are also things that are abstract, and what does abstract mean?
Not real.
Yeah, it means like there's some sort of a concept, right? Things like freedom and love and even war, right? Those are nouns. They are things, but they are abstract, okay? So abstract things are still nouns, okay? Questions on this? This should be mostly a review for you. Hopefully, I think that most people have a handle on this stuff. Okay. Now nouns can kind of be broken up into a few categories, okay? So you got like your basic noun meets this definition. Sometimes we have fancy nouns called proper nouns, okay? So a proper noun is a name used for a specific person, place, organization, or thing, and marked by an initial capital letter, which sometimes you guys suck at, okay? You need to capitalize your proper nouns, okay? Proper nouns include things like places, like Mexico and United States. They include people, like Kendall Jenner. You capitalize both their first name and their last name, okay? Both are proper nouns. Instagram, Facebook, social networks that have a specific name, or businesses, those are proper nouns. Like particular holidays, so not just like, oh, I'm going on holiday. You would not capitalize that. But if it's like Halloween, or even Secretary's Day, or whatever, okay, those are capitalized because they are proper nouns. They are the name of the specific holiday. Specific wars are capitalized. So if I just were saying like, yeah, there was a civil war in that country, I wouldn't capitalize that because that just means it's a war between the people of the same country. But if I'm talking about the U.S. Civil War, I would capitalize that because that is a specific war, okay? Or World War II, or whatever. You should capitalize your teacher's name. You should not see emails with lowercase Mrs. Cannon. That's just rude, okay? TV shows, books, the titles of things, so Stranger Things, The Book Thief, those should be capitalized. Cities, so Provo, or your high school, Timpview High School, those should all be capitalized. Okay. Questions on proper nouns? Okay, and like the last thing that falls in the noun category is technically its own part of speech, but I think it's helpful to think of it in conjunction with nouns, are pronouns, okay? Pronouns are words that are used instead of a noun or a noun phrase. Pronouns refer to either a noun that has already been mentioned or a noun that does not need to be specifically named. Okay, so these are things like him, her, she, he, it, they, them, anybody, nobody, I, me, themselves, we, their, those. And I think the last, is these. You can use these to replace nouns, okay? Anytime that you're replacing it, that is a pronoun. There are other words that are sometimes pronouns, but there are also sometimes other words. English is really fun where it's like sometimes it's this, but if it's used this way, then it's not, right? So it's like a little different than math in that case. But you have to look at how they're being used. So like if you were saying, which car should I buy? And they said, that one. One in that case is a pronoun because you're not saying that car, you're saying that one, and it's replacing the word car. Right? Pronouns are actually pretty cool linguistically because if we didn't have pronouns, you would have to say everything all the time. So if I wanted to just say, you guys should do your homework, if I didn't have pronouns, I'd have to say like, blah, blah, blah. I'd have to say all your names, should do all your names again, homework, right? Like that would be a lot. Or like, you can like refer to yourself as I, you have to refer to yourself in the third person, which is weird, right? So pronouns are actually pretty cool because they allow us to say things in a lot shorter ways. And it's pretty cool that our brains know that we've replaced it with something, right? So these can be a little confusing, but not as long as you're just saying, okay, is this replacing a noun or a proper noun? Then it's a pronoun, okay? So let's look at some examples. Here are this is a real life sentence from To Kill a Mockingbird. It says, I thought she was going to spit in it, which was the only reason anybody in Macon held out his hand. It was a time-honored method of sealing oral contracts. So the scout is talking. She's like gonna shake hands with Atticus, and she's like, I was gonna spit in it, right, when they compromised about her being able to read at home. Okay, looking at this, do I have any proper nouns? Okay, where's my proper noun? Make them, right? If I want to get real technical, Lee is also part of the sentence, right? That's the author's last name, right? So those are my proper nouns. Okay, do I have, where are my nouns? Just my regular nouns. Hand, okay, what else? Yeah. Contracts, anything else?
Spit.
In that case, it's being used as a verb, right? I was going to spit, so that's part of like the verb, something that they're doing. Okay, there's method, there's reason. Do I have any pronouns? Yeah, go for it.
She one.
Yes, what else? I, which is the only pronoun that we capitalize. Anything else? Yeah.
It.
His, right?
I said it.
Oh, it also, and his, I just blew it. Okay, cool. So we've got, those are our regular nouns. That's our proper noun, and Lee, if you want to say that. And then I, she, it, anybody is it, right? Because instead of saying the person that I do not know, anybody can replace with that. Okay? Questions so far? Okay, what we're going to do is I'm going to put two sentences up each from To Kill a Mockingbird, and what you're going to do is you're not going to write down the sentence because that's a lot of work. You're going to write down 1, 2, and then you're going to put 3 categories under each one. Noun, pronoun, proper noun. You're going to go through the sentence and label, like, if you see a noun, put it in the noun thing. If you see a pronoun, put it in the pronoun category. And if you see a proper noun, put it in the proper noun category. So I would write something like 1, proper, 2, pronoun, 3, noun, and then I would go through the sentence, and if I thought glare was a proper noun, I'd write glare here and just put commas. Okay? Does that make sense? Okay. I'll do that for each one. talking about the first one, remember to do the second one too. How many of you are done? Raise your hand. Okay, take like one more minute. Finish it. Okay, so the first one, pronoun should be I, his, and one. That's kind of a tricky one. Property nouns are dill, and nouns are glare, streetlight, eyes, and face. Any questions? And I promise if you have the question, that someone else also has that question, so don't be afraid to ask. Yeah.
Oh wait, so we were supposed to like split it into two like sections, like, cause I just combined it all into one.
Well, yeah, you should have done it for two, but I mean, like, I'm not gonna dock all the way here, but. Other questions? Some people are confused on one, but he's not literally hatching a number one, right? So one is representing something else, and what is he hatching?
What?
Like a plan or scheme, right? Yeah. Yes.
For noun, do we not put like dill in? Since it's.
Dill is a proper noun, so if it's something else, you don't have to put it under the noun, right? Right, 'cause it's someone's name. Good question. Other questions? Okay. So the second one, here are our answers. She, us, she, our. There are no proper nouns unless you count we, then you could say that was proper noun. And then nouns, cat and mouse, and lives. Any questions on that? Okay, we'll do like a little review of this next time and also talk about verbs, so look forward to that. Exciting. But these are important so that way when we start talking about clauses and phrases, you're able to identify those, because if you don't know your parts of speech, it's very difficult to figure out where these clauses and phrases start and where they are and what they're doing, okay? Okay, so we're gonna talk now about the end of To Kill a Mockingbird, because you should be done. So pull up your questions. There were 3 questions that you should have answered. I will also pull them up. Okay. So, as we come to the end of the book, there's still a few more incidents on racism, and I put a few up there. Who can tell us about the situation between Mrs. Gates and when she's talking about Hitler, and then when Tom Robinson dies? Go for it.
Well, basically, so she's talking about how, like, one of the kids, like, mentions Hitler in, like, one of the, like, current event assignment things.
Uh-huh.
And he talks about, like, Hitler and his persecution of the Jews in Europe. And so she's, like, I'm pretty sure this is before, like, the war actually started, or before, it was at least before the US got involved in the war.
Yeah.
But, she's talking about how he's just, like, such a terrible person because he's, like, always so, like, persecuting the Jews. He's being, like, so rude to them and, like, just not being fair. You know, he's making, like, he's, you know, taking them out of their houses and, like, taking away their rights. Scout is, like, kind of upset about this because, she's like, how can they be so mad at Hitler and think he's such a terrible person, but like, these people are doing similar stuff to black people.
Yeah.
Like in here, I mean, it's not, they're not doing the same stuff, right? It's not like nearly as bad, but
But is
it's
it?
still,
They enslaved them for hundreds of years. That seems
I
pretty
mean,
much.
like,
It's pretty
but
bad.
it's not like the same though.
Well, at this point, they're just they're segregated in this book. So I mean, you could say that it's not why it's bad, right?
I mean,
They're not
because
putting
like,
in gas
Hitler was
chambers.
like putting the Jews in like concentration
But the
camps.
history of what we did to
Yeah, but like at this
black
point in the
Americans.
book,
Yeah.
as far as like scouts, like they're still being like, you know, they just sentenced Tom Robinson to die. If he
Yeah, I mean, that's
was completely innocent.
not bad. That's very bad, just in case you didn't know. Okay, that's very bad. Okay, yeah, but there's some hypocrisy there, right? She's here, she's like, we are a democracy. We don't do stuff. Hitler is bad, right? And yet, Scout hears her after the trial say they got what they deserved, they're trying to be better than they are, we need to push them back down, right? And so she's bothered by this hypocrisy there, and yet she can't really put a name on it, like, whoa, you are being a hypocrite, you are just as racist as Hitler, but she, even as a child, is recognizing this difference, right? And we see a lot of people having that attitude towards Tom, where they're like, oh yeah, well the black person always comes out in the end, like inside of them, and like, just like a black person to try and run away, which is terrible, right? Because all he's trying to do is save his life. And I don't blame him for trying to run away, because they're like, you need to wait for the court system. Well, the court system just totally screwed him over, right? Like, he, you know, he's innocent and yet he's convicted. So I don't blame him for trying to run away. And yet they're quick to condemn him, which is ironic and hypocritical. Okay? And so thinking about her overall message regarding racism during the United States at this time, there's a hypocrisy there, right? Where we see ourselves as the land of the free, and yet we're not, right? There's a whole whole part of our population that doesn't, you're not white and Christian, basically. You're not equal, right? Let's talk about Bob Ewell. Okay, what goes down there? How does he actually die? How do they say that he dies? Go for it.
So they claim that he fell on his own knife, and I think that might have been part of what happened.
Okay.
I also think that, I don't think it was Jem who killed him, but it could have been Boo.
All right.
Like, it might not even have been intentional, it's like, he might have pushed him or something and he fell on the knife, but
Okay.
I don't think it was entirely Bob Ewell's fault.
All right. Yeah. Do you want to add to that? You had your hand up.
Oh,
No.
that's what I was gonna say.
Okay. Yeah, so they say that, like, Heck Tate gets there, he's the sheriff, and he's like, he fell on his knife, and that's what they decide to say happened, right? But, at first Atticus thinks that Jem is the one who actually stabbed Bob Ewell. But why does that not make sense? Asher?
Because it was like the middle of the night and he just like broken his arm and he's probably like unconscious or like barely conscious, and like how does he like tackle and stab a grown man?
Yeah, especially since when Jem is, like, she hears this crack and this kind of cry from Jem, and that's it, right? And then all of a sudden, Bob Ewell's yanked off of Jem, or Scout by someone, right? So, she thinks that it's Jem, because why would she think that there's a third person involved, right? That doesn't, like, thinking about how logically things work, that usually would, but in this case, Boo does show up, right? And so it's actually Boo that yanks him off. Now, let's talk about who actually killed him and the knife, and like, what do you guys think went down? Who do you think actually killed him, Asher?
I think it was probably, Boo Radley, because like there's one paragraph, can't exactly remember, where Mr. Tate is like, I'm not talking about Jim.
Yeah.
He's like, and then he's like, this person like doesn't, like, it's not right, he did a good thing, it's not right to bring him out into like the light. And even though they don't explicitly say Boo Radley, they're talking about him, right?
Yeah. Anyone want to add to that? Okay, yeah, he's like, I'm not thinking about Jem, right? And he's like, what are you talking about? He's like, and he starts explaining the situation, right? So let's talk about the knives, okay? So we got what kind of knife kills Bobule?
Kitchen.
Kitchen knife. I want you to think about, I'm a murderer, and I have to hide this weapon with me. Is a kitchen knife a good weapon to do that with? No, why not?
Big.
It's big and pokey, and if he doesn't have a sheath, it's going to stab you, right, if you put it somewhere. Okay, what kind of a weapon would you want? What kind of knife?
Pocket knife, probably.
Maybe a pocket knife, something that goes like this, right? Okay, there is another knife in this scene. Who else has a knife? The sheriff. What kind of knife does he have? It's a switchblade, right? So it's like, right? Okay. Where does he get that switch knife?
He gets it like on a man on the street.
Off a drunk man.
Um,
Who is a drunk man in the situation? Mr. Yule. Okay. When he says to Atticus, he's like, where'd you get that knife? Atticus asks him, and he's like, got it off the drunk man. He purposely doesn't say the name, because Atticus is going to know every name in that town, right? He's not saying the drunk man because Atticus isn't going to know who that is. Nobody just gets drunk and ends up in makeup. That's weird, okay? Like, okay, town drunk is Bob Yule. If he took it off a drunk man and purposely leaves out that name, what does that do for Atticus?
He's like,
He knows, and yet he doesn't know because he wasn't specifically told, right? It gives him like plausible deniability, right? So he's playing with a switch knife, and he's like, I took it off the drunk man. So then Bob Yule doesn't have a knife. Where does that knife come from? From a kitchen. Boo Radley's kitchen, right? So Boo comes out with a knife, and he stabs Bob Yule. The physics of him falling on his knife, it's not very probable, okay? Because it's up under here, and you would have to like, when you fall, I mean, automatically your hands splay out. They don't go like, I will catch myself, right? Like you don't, like that's just not how it works, right?
But it's a drunk dude.
okay,
It's a
what's
what?
that on my
It's a
knife?
drunk dude. He's drunk.
Oh, so maybe he's even more talented than normal people?
He's talented as a drunk man.
But he's also very used to being drunk, right? And you get a certain tolerance level. So even though he's drunk, like he's obviously able to follow them and remember his plan and not be too uncoordinated, right? So it is Boo Radley that stabs Bob Yule. And you know that because of all of those factors. And also, Harper Lee is not going to put those factors in for you to put together unless she makes that to be the conclusion, right? So even though it doesn't say Boo Radley does that, based on that, based on when Hecate says, I'm not thinking about Jim, right? It would be cruel for this man who's done people a service to be brought out into the light. And then when Atticus asks Scout, can you possibly understand, what does she say?
She says, it's kind of like shooting a mockingbird.
Yes. And why would saying what really happened be like shooting a mockingbird?
Well, because because like the idea that they say earlier, like why you shouldn't shoot a mockingbird is because they haven't done anything wrong. They only just sing for you. They don't do anything bad, and so why would you make it like suffer and like kill it?
Yeah.
For doing nothing wrong. And so Mr. Tate knows that a lot of people are going to come and congratulate Boo Radley for saving the kids, and like Boo Radley doesn't want that kind of attention. And also he probably knows that the case will go to court, and he knows that about like the prejudice in the court system from earlier.
Yeah.
And so he knows there's a good chance that if he says that Boo Radley stabbed Bob, then Boo Radley's gonna go to court, and there's a good chance he could get convicted, and that he could be sentenced to like to death for that, and like it's not fair because all he did was he did a good thing.
Yeah.
And he shouldn't risk being sent to prison and killed because of it. Right?
Yeah. I mean, they've seen prejudice in the town. I think it's likely that he would get acquitted, but even so, that would be torturous for him to go through this court process, right? When he's even like they're in their living room, and he's already kind of blinking hard, and he's very pasty and hasn't seen the sun, it seems like, in a while, right? And so to do that to someone who's just trying to protect Jim and Scout would be cruel and like shooting a mockingbird. Okay, any questions about that and how that went down? Okay. And then the last one, what is Boo Radley like when she finally meets him? Yeah, go for it.
He's very nervous. He doesn't seem
Yeah, he is almost childlike in some ways, right? Like she takes his hand and leads him home, and he's like, "Will you take me home?" And yeah, he's really twitchy almost. I feel like. Okay, is he anything like they thought before? No, right? He's just kind of like this innocent kind man, and we see that when the idea of the mockingbird is linked to him, right? And then she stands in his shoes at the end of the novel, and how does she feel about Boo when she's looking at the neighborhood from his vantage point? It's very warm and fuzzy, right? Like you get like this nice conclusion of the book, and it kind of wraps everything together. Okay? Any questions about the end of To Kill a Mockingbird or anything that you were confused on at all? Okay, well we are finished reading, and now you're gonna write a paper. Yay!
No.
Woohoo! I'm so excited. I can feel it. Okay, so let's talk about what that looks like. The due dates on this thing are a little screwy. I keep trying to fix them, and they keep switching the schedule. So we're just gonna ignore it. I'm gonna tell you what's due next week, and you're just gonna like keep building on like the parts, and we'll get to where the due dates are. So let me. We'll just click on the link here. Okay, so you'll go on Canvas, and you can click on the TChem and the requirements. And I'll have to make a copy. I probably should have just done view, but whatever. So here are all the requirements for your final essay. And even though we're writing a slightly different type of essay here, it's a lot like the argument essay you wrote last time, okay? You'll still use the same formatting, you'll still use 2 quotes per paragraph, you'll still be proving some sort of thesis, right? The only difference is that instead of taking a bunch of different sources and going on to the online library and researching, your source for your quotes and your evidence is going to come from To Kill a Mockingbird only, okay? And you don't need to do a counterclaim because you're not really going to be considering another point of view here. But all of the skills that you learned on your first paper are going to apply to this one too, okay? So what you're going to do is you are going to craft a 3 to 4 page essay in which you identify a theme in To Kill a Mockingbird and analyze how it's developed throughout the novel. Okay, so it's 12-point font, double spaced. You'll probably have about 3 body paragraphs, okay, and then your intro and conclusion. You don't need a counterclaim. I'll just like repeat that, no counterclaim, okay? Because what you're doing is you're analyzing, you're not really considering another point of view, okay? Remember, and I have all this helpful stuff about themes on that paper, and you have it in your notes, that a theme is a central, underlying, and controlling idea of a literary work, okay? So you're looking for a central controlling idea. And then, in order to do this question well, you need to identify both a theme and how it's being developed. Okay, so let me like be really specific about that because this seems to be what people are missing the most. So, okay, so it asks you to, what you need to do in your thesis, and I think it would help to just start as basic as kind of filling in these blanks. So you would just start with like, in To Kill a Mockingbird, and you'll spell it out, but for the sake of time, I'm just gonna write that. In To Kill a Mockingbird, a major theme is blank. Okay, now a theme is not one word. Racism is not a theme in the novel. It is a subject. You need to think about what Harper Lee is teaching us about racism. So is theme, which equals subject or concept plus lesson, basically. Okay, what do we learn about that? That is your theme. Now that is half of your thesis, because the other part is you're analyzing how it's developed in the book. So then I would write, which is developed by blank. Okay. Now, if you look on that sheet right there, it says it's represented by characters, actions, or images in the literary work. Okay. So you want to think about, okay, what in the book is leading me to learn that lesson about that subject? Okay, what is building that theme? If you can't think of a theme, there are the questions. Right here is like, how does the main character change? Look at Scout. How does she change? You could find a theme there. What lessons did they learn? What's the central conflict? What is the subject of the work? Okay, think about all those things, and then think about the things in the book that build that. What patterns you notice. So it could be something like, you could say like, by the interactions of one character, so like you have like Scout, you're like, okay, this theme is brought, and she talks to this person, this one, and this one, right? So you could say here, is developed by Scout's interaction with various characters in the book. Let's say though, you're like, okay, well I noticed that there's like this foil here, and this symbol, and then also this situation here. Okay, and those don't really have anything in common with each other, then you could just list it, right? By this foil between this person, this symbol, and her interaction with blank. Okay? But whatever it is, you need to put how it's being developed. That's the other part of your thesis. So if you have a subject, that is not a theme. You say, well, you learned about that subject, and that's your theme. And then, if you just have that, that is not your thesis, that's just a theme. You need to say how it's being developed, because that's what you're proving in this paper, is that you know that this is a theme because of these things. Does that make sense? Okay, so you'll have to be thoughtful about that. There's an assignment on Canvas that says TCAM thesis. You're just going to, in a text box, write down what that is, okay? The other thing that you're going to do this week is you're going to write your outline, okay? So once you need a thesis first, okay? If you don't have a thesis, it's very hard to know what your paper's doing, right? Because that's the whole point of your paper. So your outline, the one-page detailed guide to help you in your writing. So I have the two templates that we used last time, right? You can use, this is the more traditional, and this is kind of what college professors are looking for, so it's good to practice. And like your upper level classes here at TIMFU will probably use this format too, where you just put, okay, the big Roman numerals, those are like my paragraphs and like the major idea for that. And then the other ones are like, okay, here's my evidence and here's the page number and have explanations to myself. Or you can do the graphic organizer if you like that, okay? Where you just put your thesis there, and these are your main three things, so like foil, symbol, interaction, and then this is the page numbers of the evidence. You do want your page numbers of where you're pulling the quotes, because otherwise, if you forget to do that, you'll have to look it up later, and that sucks. I'm speaking from experience, okay? But that's just an important part of being a good writer, is quoting where you get that stuff from. And you still need 2 quotes at least per body paragraph, okay? Questions? Okay, so by the end of class today, you should probably have like your thesis picked out, okay? Or at least have a really good idea, and then you'll be working on that outline at home. Next class, we will start working on your rough draft, and I will be conferencing with you just to go over your thesis and what you've got so far to make sure you're headed in a good trajectory, because I would hate for you to kind of only put a theme and not how it's developed and then go to all the work of writing an essay that isn't going to work, right? So I'm not conferencing with you to be like, wow, you sucked, right? No, we're working together, right, to get this done. Okay, questions? Okay, the only other homework you have besides your outline and thesis, so this is an assignment on Canvas too, and you'll turn it in there. And I think the templates are on that assignment. You can click on the link and then fill out whichever one you like. Is to make sure that you pick that term 2 choice book by the 19th, which I believe is Friday, okay? Or Thursday? Thursday or Friday?
Thursday.
Thursday? Okay. If you want to borrow any of the books that I have left that have not been borrowed, you may. Just let me know so I can write it down. Or if you're using like your refugee book from AP Human,
Oh, I should have done that.
you can do that. You can switch if you want to do that. That's fine. Or if you want to read 2 books, that's great. Yeah.
Let's do is